Are you in need of prescription medications? Are you not insured or paying a high deductible? Are you buying medications not covered by insurance, or are you in the coverage gap? Well, the EasyRx drug card is for you. You can present this card and save up to 75% on your prescriptions and vaccines. You can use the card as much as you want. You can share the card with your friends and family, and you can learn more by either going to easyrx.info or calling 1-888-602-2978. Again, easyrx.info.
This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The one that everybody wants, me.
Becky Lynch is going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
What's going on, everybody, guys and girls? Welcome back to another edition of the SmackDown Review right here on the WWE Podcast. As always, I'm one of the hosts of the show, Michael Ritter. You can find me on Twitter at Michael5Ritter. And also one of the hosts of the Football Function podcast, available on all your podcasting platforms, including wherever you got this show, and also on Patreon if you prefer an ad-free experience. This is going to be a little bit of a different SmackDown review, obviously. SmackDown itself wasn't what it normally is. It wasn't what it was advertised or supposed to be, because obviously, as you are well aware, it was a very rough week for wrestling fans and for pretty much everybody who's familiar with Bray Wyatt and also Terry Funk. I didn't want to not give Terry Funk the respect he deserves for, everything that he's done in his career. But, I got to be honest, just the Bray Wyatt news, that was different. It was just a little bit different than really anything since, Kobe Bryant, when he passed away at the very beginning of 2020. Just to be completely honest, I can't think of a celebrity between then and now that it actually affected me this much. I can only speak for myself. I'm sure that there's been people who have been affected differently by others, and I'm not trying to compare the two. I'm just simply, saying from my perspective here, I haven't been affected by a celebrity's death like this in a very long time. And if you want to talk about wrestlers, man, we're going all the way back to, Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit. And, obviously, whenever details came out about Chris Benoit, that changed the way everybody viewed it. But in the moment, whenever you knew, because it wasn't until, several days after that we actually got more horrific details about that. So in the moment, people were devastated whenever Chris Benoit died. Before you actually had time to look at the whole situation after things kind of unfolded. And that's how I felt with Bray Wyatt, just being completely honest. I was not a huge Wyatt family fan. I was really intrigued with the Fiend character, but I was always really just drawn to what Bray Wyatt was doing. It always seemed like his promos, they were always somewhat of like a riddle. You had to figure it out yourself. He just seemed like he was different. Maybe just he had a little bit more creative control over what he was saying. He didn't seem like he was, the typical WWE scripted promo. So I always thought that was a little bit different. But, we'll get into all that. We'll definitely talk about that a little bit more here on the show. We're going to run through the few things that actually happened on SmackDown that were wrestling related. Not going to harp on them too long. They really have no meaning in terms of storyline development or anything like that. It was pretty much just a way to give the audience some entertainment, instead of just completely having it be an emotional night, which it was. They started it off pretty emotional, and it just continued on really throughout the show. So they wanted to sprinkle in some wrestling throughout the night, and you could definitely appreciate that. I think it was a job well done by WWE. Just the way that they were able to throw this together on the fly and put together a really meaningful show. I guess it shows that WWE does have a finger on the pulse of how important Bray Wyatt was to the whole WWE universe. But that everybody there who works for WWE knows Bray Wyatt from a different perspective, not just the character, but they know him as Wyndham, So it's tough, for everybody. The production team, I'm sure, was in tears doing their job that they had to do. The people backstage, all of the wrestlers as they were lining up at the top of the stage when the show started, it was something that you never want to see, Like, that's, whenever you see one happen in real time, it's like, man, that we're going to remember this for a long time. This is going to be played over and over again, and it's just part of us now. We kind of just have to go forward as wrestling fans always do. But I did want to apologize beforehand about my voice. I've been sick as hell the past few days. I actually had a couple interviews scheduled for the Football Function podcast, and I haven't been able to do those because I've just been so sick. My co-host for the Football Function was also sick on Wednesday. It's Saturday, and Wednesday is whenever I got sick, and I'm still not feeling 100%. You could probably hear I sound a little bit congested, so I do apologize. This is not necessarily an easy SmackDown review to do. So if you'll just bear with me, we'll definitely get through this and, talk about the show that aired on August 25th, 2023 from Louisville, Kentucky. Shout out DJ Kuzmo for the location breakdown, who also was a guest on the Football Function podcast this week. I definitely appreciate that. Detroit Kyle as well. I always appreciate the support from my WWE podcast family that follow me over to the Football Function podcast. It means a lot, and for those two to take time out of their Sunday evening to talk some football with me, it definitely does not go unappreciated on my end. But anyways, this SmackDown, what we're talking about, it started off with all of the superstars lined up on the top of the stage, so WWE could give the 10 rings of the bell. They ring the bell 10 times as a way to honor any superstar, past or present, who passes away, and it's just something they've always done. And I always thought it was a classy move for them to do that. Triple H was in the middle of everybody, just right there on the stage next to guys like Cody Rhodes. Obviously, Braun Strowman was standing there. Eric Rowan, I love that they were able to bring him back and give him a front and center spot. I really like that, and that rocking chair that was standing there just by itself with a spotlight on it. And then they play a video package for Bray Wyatt. Oh, man, that right there. There was not a dry eye in my house watching this because honestly, showing all of the, his wrestling highlights, showing his, career in the form of a video package, that was touching. That was nice to see. It's always a way to give them their flowers. But honestly, man, when they showed him and his family, it shifted everything. It went from, man, we're honoring a wrestler here in his career to, man, we're celebrating the life of a father, of a husband who literally died at 36 years old. It's not normal to be having the 10 bells for somebody who was just on the active roster for a full decade. That's why the Bray Wyatt news hits just so much different than really anything else that I've seen in such a long time. In my adult life, for sure. Like, that was crazy because Bray Wyatt, he's been multiple versions, like he's obviously the cult leader, the Wyatt family. That's where I was introduced to him in 2014 when I started watching WWE again. And then he shifted to The Fiend. And the Wyatt family, there were also different versions of that. Also, I do want to say, before we move on to just his Fiend gimmick, the Wyatt family started off as something, and then it evolved. And it was similar to what it started as, but as you have to over the years, you can't stay the exact same. Kind of similar to like Roman Reigns, his babyface character, whenever he was, the big dog and all that. Like, he was still babyface Roman Reigns, but it shifted. Just small tweaks here and there made it a little bit different throughout the years until ultimately he switched to something completely different. And that's kind of what we saw with the Bray Wyatt family version. Whenever he had Luke Harper and Eric Rowan, eventually brought in Braun Strowman, and then he was by himself, but he was still Bray Wyatt. He still had the lantern. He was still Bray Wyatt, just a little bit different. And then Randy Orton, obviously, teamed up with him a little bit. They had the Daniel Bryan situation, Alexa Bliss later on in his career. But this is just me pretty much saying that, from an outsider who really wasn't the biggest Wyatt family fan, I was still aware and I acknowledged all of the changes throughout the years, and it was definitely entertaining. It was good stuff. I was just more so into the Roman Reigns and, the Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins aspect of them all going their separate ways during that time, that I really wasn't focused on, what was going on the mid-card. Although whenever I look back now, it was a phenomenal time in wrestling. Like that 2014, 2015, 2016 era, right before they went back to the quote-unquote brand split, whenever SmackDown was still, it was still obviously taped. It wasn't live. Like when they went SmackDown live, SmackDown was taped on Tuesdays, I believe, and then shown on Fridays. Or maybe even Thursdays at this point. To be honest, it's all kind of fuzzy right now, so don't put all your eggs into what I'm saying, but what I'm saying is times like these is whenever you get a chance to reflect on that. Like I went back and I was watching some Bray Wyatt stuff and I was reminded, like, man, this was a fun time in wrestling. Like I remember what I was doing in life around that time, like I remember what my life was like 8 years ago or however long. So that's one good thing that you can do whenever you reflect, is you get to appreciate things a little bit differently. And I think that's one thing that people are doing right now with Bray Wyatt. They're reflecting. They're thinking about all the good things and all the good memories that they got from watching this guy on their television screen. He got a lot of fans. Like you all see the fireflies and people holding up their phones with their flashlights in the sky. That was always a massive thing. Just for as long as I can remember, Bray Wyatt has always had a massive fan base, and that's something that I've always, appreciated from afar, because I've been a part of other cult-like followings. Like, whenever Roman Reigns was a babyface, and I know I've already alluded to this in this episode, but it was not popular to be a Roman Reigns fan. If you were a Roman Reigns fan, people were like, what the hell? Like, why? Like, it's stupid right now. He's trying to be forced down our throat. Vince McMahon just keeps giving WrestleMania main event after WrestleMania main event. People weren't really as welcoming to the Roman Reigns type massive following. So I had to kind of, keep that to the side. But as far as Bray Wyatt goes, it's more so like a wear it on your sleeve. Bray Wyatt's fans are not quiet. They're not apologetic. They do not care if you appreciate it or not. And that's one thing that I like. So it's going to be tough just navigating through the quote unquote life without Bray Wyatt, because no one expected this at all. Like whenever somebody sent a message to the Discord, that's what made me look immediately. And I apologize for not remembering exactly who sent that initial message, but they said, hey, pretty sure Wyndham Rotunda, a.k.a. Bray Wyatt, passed away. Triple H just tweeted it. And I was like, wait, what? And I went to Twitter, immediately searched Triple H's name, and I saw the tweet and had to, rub my eyes, make sure that it wasn't one of those blue check mark pranks or anything like that. Like I had to make sure, triple check, quadruple check. And whenever I actually realized this was real, I was downstairs, like, because I'm in my new studio right now, the one that I've been pretty much putting together for the past week. I was in a probably 2.5 hour, in the middle of a 2.5 hour grind of just putting shelves up and wiring up cords and actually decorating some of these shelves and getting flags hung up on the wall, all that good stuff. Things that you look forward to do whenever you move your studio. And I got that news, and it's just like, man, like I had all this energy, I had all this motivation to get this knocked out, and then it's just like all of the wind was knocked out of my sails. To be specific, I hung up a Fiend action figure on this top shelf. Like, it's right up there right now. I'm literally looking at it. And that was the day that I got the news, So that just tells you, like, man, I did not think when I was hanging that bad boy up, because I put it up strategically. Like, I have the old school 1990s Kane action figure kind of along the same area as him. I have the Boogeyman around the same area as him. And the thought process behind that was I wanted to put the creepy / people who could strike fear position behind other wrestlers, to give off that, ooh, they're creeping up behind them look. These wrestlers are on shelves. They're here for look and for decoration. It's not like I'm putting them in a ring and actually fighting these bad boys. So I'm trying to be strategic as to where I, display these wrestlers. And I wanted to put Bray Wyatt kind of, creeping up behind somebody, because I have the Fiend version. That was just the one Bray Wyatt action figure that I was like, oh man, I have to get that one. Like, that's so sick. And, yeah, it's sad. I'm sorry that I'm a little bit at a loss for words here. I kind of just had to hop on here and say something. You know, I didn't want to obviously just let the week go without a SmackDown review. That's not an option. I knew for sure that we were going to do some type of show. I just really wasn't sure what, because I planned on talking about my sickness, because I remember I got sick as hell on Wednesday. And that's whenever I was like, oh man, like this is rough. On Thursday morning, I was like, man, I'm going to have to, it's to the point now to where I'm going to have to freaking talk about this on the show. And I was also going to talk about Terry Funk, because that's big news as well. And I knew I was going to have to talk about that on the show. But the Bray Wyatt stuff, once that happened, I was like, man, there might not be a SmackDown review. This just might be a tribute show altogether. And that's pretty much what it's going to end up being. I mean, the only things that happened on SmackDown, we had Rey Mysterio had a one-on-one match against Grayson Waller. He ends up winning that match. And Austin Theory comes out, the former United States champion, ends up getting attacked by Santos Escobar. So we got that. We also had a Terry Funk hardcore match, which wasn't a whole lot of hardcore stuff. Really wasn't expecting there to be, although, I mean, there's been some speculation maybe that it wouldn't be a bad idea to just rename the term hardcore, like a hardcore match or a hardcore rules, to Terry Funk rules. Like whenever somebody's cutting a promo and say, I want to challenge you to a match, Terry Funk rules, you already know exactly what that implies. Just pretty much meaning that, I mean, we're about to beat the hell out of each other with some weapons, and, you know, there's going to be some color, so just get used to it. That match was between the Street Profits and the Brawling Brutes. The Street Profits get the win. They do have some new gear that they were wearing into the ring. It wasn't like a drastic change or anything like that, but it was just noticeably different from what they've been wearing. They still had a little bit of the same vibe when they came out, same theme song, all that stuff. So that's something that I feel like if they're going to fully go into this character change, they're going to have to tweak that a little bit, but they do get the win. They still look dominant. It does seem like the Street Profits are on their way. Bobby Lashley comes out to the ring during this match, and he lays a vicious spear on, I think it was Butch. Butch might have been the one that was on the receiving end of that, but it was not pretty, to say the least. If you were Butch, that was it was pretty if you liked the spear. That was a good spear, but this Butch, Bobby Lashley is probably one of the most beautiful spears in all of wrestling. That's including, Braun Breaker. Edge is probably my favorite. Goldberg had a beautiful one back in the day, regardless of how you feel about Goldberg. He is, you got to give him credit where it's due. The guy can deliver a spear at least back in his prime. Let's see, the final match of the night was LA Knight versus Finn Balor. LA Knight gets a very impressive clean win, but the most impressive thing was how he handled the situation before the match. He addresses Bray Wyatt. He stays in character. He addresses The Miz as well. He pays respect to Bray Wyatt as well. This was just phenomenal work. Like, this was a difficult time, and WWE put Bray Wyatt in the main event spot and said, go. Like, carry us right now. And he did. And I think that's promising. It should be a promising sign if you're an LA Knight fan, which I am. But if also you're a WWE executive, or if you're somebody who works for the company, to see that you do have somebody on your hands that can handle that spotlight in a situation like that. This was a very difficult circumstance that he had to do. He even said, I'm not going to come out here and pretend that I was best friends with Bray Wyatt, but the guy literally helped me out so much in our program together. LA Knight was Bray Wyatt's last match. Me and John, my co-host, we were there in attendance. So was Rocky T and probably many others in San Antonio, Texas for the Royal Rumble. In the moment, you never would have thought this is going to be anybody's quote-unquote last match, whether it's Bray Wyatt, any of the people that were in the Royal Rumble. Like, you just think, man, like, you don't expect that, It does make it more special now. Like, I cherish that. I cherish that night, knowing that not only did I get to see, the Royal Rumble, how great of a moment that was, seeing Cody Rhodes win, Sami Zayn turn on Roman Reigns, but now that also is attached to Bray Wyatt in a very, very different way. And I'm definitely glad that I was able to see that in person. But I do want to talk about Terry Funk for a little bit here. This one was tough too. Number one, Terry Funk passed away in my hometown here in Amarillo, Texas. Like literally where I am recording this right now is where Terry Funk was from. It's where he was currently living at, I believe, like an assisted living environment, like a facility. And his funeral is here next week.
Are you in need of prescription medications? Are you not insured or paying a high deductible? Are you buying medications not covered by insurance, or are you in the coverage gap? Well, the EasyRx drug card is for you. You can present this card and save up to 75% on your prescriptions and vaccines. You can use the card as much as you want. You can share the card with your friends and family, and you can learn more by either going to easyrx.info or calling 1-888-602-2978. Again, easyrx.info.
It's at like, I think 2 o'clock or something like that. There's like a between 5 to 7 on Thursday. There is like a memorial, they're going to honor him. And then that next morning, Friday, I think maybe around, 1 o'clock or something along those lines, they're going to have a service for him. And I legitimately might go to that. I'm going to be off next Friday. I feel like it's very rare that something like that actually happens. So there's a good chance I'm going to go pay my respects to Terry Funk, which would be an honor. I met Terry Funk when I was in the 4th grade because my hometown, I live in Amarillo, Texas right now. My hometown, Dalhart, Texas, is about 86 miles north from here. And Terry Funk had an autograph signing there in 2004. Me and my best friend Joseph at the time, we got action figures that we each had signed by him, and also a book where he wrote Future Tag Team Champs, which was very cool. Like in the moment, a WWE wrestler actually saying that you're going to be a future tag team champion, like that was so insane. In the moment, I know that my buddy Joey, the one that was there with me, I know that he remembers that, and that's how I was introduced to Terry Funk. There was multiple times, like throughout my childhood, that he would appear on WWE TV, whether it was Raw or something like that, and I would hear Jim Ross say Amarillo, Texas, and that was crazy. Like he went to WT, West Texas A&M University here, and he played football. It's just, it's literally the most local legend that I've ever met, that I've ever known. There's a place called Lake Tanglewood right here in Amarillo, Texas, where he actually lived, like where his house was. The place that I work for, me and John both, we do landscaping maintenance for the neighbor's house that live literally right next door to his actual house. One time we were there putting up Christmas lights. Just that's what we do as well. We provide Christmas light service for our clients. And we were installing the Christmas lights there, and we see a truck just drive by really slowly. We don't really know who it was. Like, it was just like, because I mean, it's like a folk legend out there, like, oh, is that Terry Funk? Is that Terry Funk? Everybody who goes to Lake Tanglewood is looking for this celebrity, especially if you're a wrestling fan and you know that there is a legend that lives here amongst us. You're always going to be on the lookout for him. I go out to Lake Tanglewood every single Wednesday. I've gone out to Tanglewood every single Wednesday since 2014. That's literally almost 10 years now. And I've only seen Terry Funk one time. The one time that I was putting up these Christmas lights and he drove by, and me and the guy that was there working with me, whose name was Caleb, we look to the street and this truck's driving by very, very slowly. Like the speed limit on these streets are like probably 20, 25 miles per hour. And this person's driving like 10 miles an hour. And it was Terry Funk and his wife. And he just gives us a little bit of a wave. My stomach drops. My arm hair right now is standing up just thinking about it. And like, it was just crazy because obviously that was the last time that I ever saw him. He did end up going to like an old folks home, an assisted living area, because he started dealing with really bad dementia really late in his life. Mick Foley even talked about it in a tweet once, having some guilt for it. Like he said, man, I can't help but think about all the rough matches that me and Terry Funk put ourselves through. I can't help but think about all of the things that, I did to him over the years that hopefully didn't contribute to this. I mean, he had some guilt, and, it's very sad whenever you think about stuff like that. And I would never, ever try to put words into anybody's mouth or speak for them, especially somebody who's no longer living. But I would assume that Terry Funk didn't have any type of grudge or any type of resentment for any of the people who he worked with. People who he was also inflicting a lot of damage to their bodies, over the year. It was all for the sake of entertainment, of making sure that you got your money's worth, there's probably so many local gyms here in Texas that Terry Funk sold out. He made a lot of promoters a lot of money over the years. A hell of an athlete, just an absolute badass. This is somebody who you didn't want to cross at any point. He showed up on WWE Raw, I think it was, with Dean Ambrose whenever they were advertising his hardcore match at WrestleMania with Brock Lesnar. They were just bringing various legends that, to come kind of hype him up and give him a little bit of like a build-up speech. And at one point it was Terry Funk, and he was 72 years old, just cutting an A1 promo, especially for somebody that old. It was great to see. I was like, man, that's Terry Funk right there, like what the hell? How does he just crawl out of bed and go do that on TV when there's some wrestlers who are way, way younger that just, for whatever reason, they just don't have it. They just don't have it. It's an unspoken thing. It's something that you damn near can't even coach. Some wrestlers have it, some don't. It took 6 years for Roman Reigns to get it. Whenever you talk about just that charisma where all of your lines are hitting on all cylinders, you're not stumbling over any words or anything like that. And I feel like Terry Funk just is somebody who was born with it. Just at birth, he knew right away like he was meant to be a professional wrestler. And that journey and that destiny ended up finding him. Luckily, we were all blessed and lucky that we had somebody like that in past generations to set the mold and form some of our favorite wrestlers and some of our favorite hardcore wrestlers that we saw in ECW and all that stuff. Terry Funk was very important, I guess, in many, many ways whenever you look at that and just the history of hardcore wrestling. But I'm not going to, touch any more on it. This is a little bit of a shorter episode. I do apologize for that. It was tough to talk about some of this stuff. I do feel better now than I did whenever I first started, and that just comes from talking about it with you guys. Just getting a little bit off your chest. Just being able to voice some of these thoughts you have, because just getting hit with somebody as local as Terry Funk, and then bam, not even 24 hours later, it's like, wait, what? Bray Wyatt too? Like, how in the hell is this happening? So I feel for all of my wrestling fan friends out there. I mean, at this point, I feel like it's all right to call you guys my family. I've known some of you for years now. I'm literally creeping up on 3 years exactly. Let's see. Yep, 3 years on October 2nd from whenever I've officially been part of this WWE podcast team. And it's been a wild ride. Like, this episode right here is episode 150. I've been counting these bad boys up, just my episodes that I've recorded. This is my 150th episode, and it just so happens to be one that's unlike any others. You don't plan stuff like this clearly. So it's not like I wanted episode 150 to be one that wasn't just a regular SmackDown review. It's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes and how things work out. But I do appreciate you guys for going along with me on this ride. I do, I'm keeping you guys in my thoughts as well. I know that Bray Wyatt impacted a lot of people. Wrestling fans are people that get invested in characters, I'm one of them. I'm a very proud wrestling fan, and I know how it is to have your favorites. There's people out there that idolize Bray Wyatt. People were spending, thousands of dollars on that championship belt that was custom to The Fiend. I think that thing's probably going to be worth a lot more money now, if I know the way that eBay works. So if you do have any Bray Wyatt merchandise or, action figures, collectibles, memorabilia, hold on to it. Represent that stuff. Take pride in the fact that you got it whenever he was alive. Some people are going to go stock up on Bray Wyatt merch now. They're going to go buy all the stuff that they can. Take pride in the fact that you had it before, that you were supporting him before it was, the cool thing to do. And I know it's always been technically cool to support Bray Wyatt. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that, if you were a supporter of Bray Wyatt before, then, you should still be a fan now and be very proud about that. And if you're not a Bray Wyatt fan before and now you are, because you're like, man, I want to respect this guy. I appreciate what he meant to the company now. That's okay too. It's okay to change your mind. It's okay to jump on the bandwagon or whatever. It's never too late to be a fan of something. And, don't let anybody tell you that you can't, it's not cool now to be a fan or anything like that. Like whatever you want. And if you feel like supporting Bray Wyatt, that's definitely, in my book, a very cool thing to do, especially considering that WWE has announced that they're donating all of his proceeds to any merch sold from Bray Wyatt to JoJo and his kids. You know, his family are going to get that money and those royalties. So definitely, if it's in your means, if you feel like it's something you want to do, go get a Bray Wyatt shirt. Go buy a Bray Wyatt picture. That's, you know, one of the moments that are big of his career. They sell those on WWE Shop, whether it's, you know, one of the moments he won a WWE championship or debuted as The Fiend or something like that. There's many moments in time that WWE has probably captured and they're able to market it. So go support Bray Wyatt if that's something you feel like you want to do. But I did want to give a shout out to both Bray Wyatt and Terry Funk. Rest in peace. And, you know, you're never going to leave the wrestling fans' hearts. That's one beautiful thing about the wrestling world is people live forever. They really do, in a sense, whenever you talk about the immortality of somebody like Terry Funk, who left a mark on many decades, 6 decades of being a professional wrestler. People just don't do that anymore. I mean, I know that there's some. I mean, it's few and far between, but for the most part, this is a brutal lifestyle that these guys are, you know, choosing to dedicate their life to, just taking a beating every single night. I know professional wrestlers that aren't in WWE, but they wrestle for, you know, a living. They get paid off of wrestling, and they travel around all throughout the Panhandle, through Oklahoma and up to Kansas. They dedicate their life to this. And, you know, power to them. I definitely tip my hat, and I have all the respect in the world for them because they're following their passion and they're doing what they love. And being able to do it for 6 decades is, you know, a really big testament to Terry Funk. And then when you look at, you know, Bray Wyatt, it's easy to say that he's going to live on forever because, man, he's 36 years old. Like, he still had so much life left to live just as a human, you know, not even to mention probably the 10 years that he was supposed to be still at least an active wrestler on some company. But WWE seemed like always the place that he fit in the best, at least in my personal opinion. I know he probably didn't get a chance to do a whole lot outside of WWE, at least with an actual following. He really got famous throughout, you know, the late NXT, and coming into the WWE, it's still crazy to even think about. It really is, to be honest. But like I said, I appreciate you guys, you know, sticking around with me here throughout this episode. If you still are listening, definitely want to give you a shout out and definitely come back. We're getting back to probably normal SmackDown stuff next week. We'll see what happens. I know that Raw has some good stuff planned this Monday night, so definitely check that out, and all the other wrestling shows that are going on here on the WWE podcast. A lot of good stuff coming. So definitely stay tuned. And always subscribe, follow, listen to your favorite show, the WWE Podcast. Thank you guys so much for making this show part of your weekly routine. Hopefully you'll come back, and if you do, we got some pretty good stuff in store. So thank you guys so much. Walk passionately in the direction of your dreams, and I'll talk to you soon.
Are you in need of prescription medications? Are you not insured or paying a high deductible? Are you buying medications not covered by insurance, or are you in the coverage gap? Well, the EasyRx drug card is for you. You can present this card and save up to 75% on your prescriptions and vaccines. You can use the card as much as you want. You can share the card with your friends and family, and you can learn more by either going to easyrx.info or calling 1-888-602-2978. Again, easyrx.info.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.